So in that context, what it's doing, it's pulling data from this database here. Right, so it's pulling data from the storage table here. So if we do a select, from storage, right, so it pulls that data. This is what the data looks like in the database. If we select that from the API, if we say give me my storage, this is what the data looks like if it's served to a client, okay, in a JSON format. Let's go to the next resolver. So the next resolver is the compute resolver, right? So if you say give me all the compute data, if you notice, it's saying from the Jannah models, give me all the compute objects. Okay, so if you look at the models table, so this is where we define our model, right? So this model is mirrored in compute, right? So if we select from compute, say select star from compute, right? So this is what you will get, right? You will get the compute data stored in the database. And the front end, if you call the API for that same data, you get the data in a JSON format, okay? So let's take a look at the next resolver. So the next resolver is the resolve UX, okay? So if you do a query for the UX data, that query will be actually handled for you by this resolver function here. And if you notice here, it too says from the Django models, off of the UX table, give me all the objects, okay? And if you look at the model, this is what the Django model looked like, okay? And if we do that query on the front end, say give me UX list, okay? What it does, it gives you that same data in the database, right? So this data you're looking at in the database here, right, is presented to you. UX. Right. So it will present to you this user data, but in a JSON format that can be consumed by a front-end application. Okay. After the UX would be the feedback queries. Okay. It too says go on the Django models table, get specifically the feedback table, and give me all the objects, right? So this is a list, we're asking for a list of feedbacks. So if you go here, the model looks like this, okay? So in the database, the feedback table, would look like this. So let's say select star from feedback. Okay, so select star from feedback. Okay, so if we do a query for feedback, for a list of feedbacks, you'll get that same data, but the data is in a JSON format to be consumed by a front-end application. Okay, next would be workflows. Okay, so just like all the other models, the workflow model will, if you can notice here, the workflow model is using pagination, right? So the workflow model and the queries that are related to the workflow model was the first place we started to implement pagination. And of course, we have to do pagination for all the other models, but just as a proof of concept, we started with the workflow, and this is what it looks like, okay? It says, give me all the workflows, right? But I'm not just gonna send them all to you at the same time. I'm gonna paginate them. I'm gonna give them to you in pages, right? So what I'm saying here, I'm basically saying there's gonna be 3 workflow per page, right? So if I have 9 workflows, I'm gonna give those to you in 3 pages, right? So I give you page 1 with the first 3 workflow, then I'll give you page 2 with the next workflow, with the next 3 workflow, then I'll give you page 3 with the next 3 workflow. And that's really what this function is doing here, right? It's a way to say I'm gonna have a cursor. That cursor is gonna be, think about it as a bookmark, right? I'm gonna go through page 1, page 2, page 3, and every time I go through a page, I put a bookmark there, right? And that bookmark is how you know where you are as you move through the list of data, right? Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. So if you notice here, what it's doing really, it's selecting items from the workflow model, and the workflow model looks like this, right? So what it's doing here, it's saying, give me all the workflow objects, right? But I'm gonna use this paginator model, library here. So we're using, if you notice, we're selecting from Django core paginator. We're using the paginator model module, right? It's a library for doing pagination, right? What it does, it say, okay, these are all the workflows I have. I'm going to pass them to this paginator library with a count, right? So what this count does, this count tells the paginator how many objects to put per page, right? And based on that, I can say if I have next pages or not. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. So if we make that call, workflow list, right? So what it does, it says, okay, these are the workflows you have. I have more workflow coming for you, but for now, I'm going to give you workflow 1, 2, and 3, and the next page will be page 2, right? Right? So if you want a specific workflow, you would then have to make a subsequent call, right? So here we can make that call. Let's say we want workflow for ID number 2, right? Right? So you will make a subsequent call for ID number 2. So what this allows you to do, it allows you to show a list of workflows, and if a user select workflow number 2, it will make a subsequent call, right, to get that specific workflow. So this is basically what pagination is all about, right? It's to say, I'm going to give you a list of items, and you can pick a specific items, and then I'll give you the details on that specific item.